President Trump's going to sign the awful spending bill that Congress agreed to, and he's going to declare a national emergency. So what's next? And is it a good idea to declare a national emergency? Hey everyone, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. President Donald Trump is set to sign on to the spending deal that is absolutely awful that passed in the Senate and in the House. And then he's also going to declare, at least according to the White House, a national emergency on the U.S.-Mexico border. What would this allow the president to do? Well, if he can get past the court challenges, it would allow the president to shift some money around, which he can actually already do before a national emergency. But a national emergency would allow the president to move extra funds into building a border fence, border wall, whatever you want to call it. Now, let's be honest about this. There are going to be plenty of challenges to this, plenty of court challenges to this. You're going to have Democrats who sue, saying the president is abusing his power. Is he? No. President has every opportunity afforded to him to declare a national emergency. In fact, there are 31 other national emergencies currently on the books dating back to the Carter administration. So this is nothing new. It's just the topic that's new, and that is going around Congress, because Congress didn't do their job, in order to build a wall. Now, is the president breaking any laws here? Absolutely not. Is the president setting a bad precedent moving forward? That's something that can be debated. I would argue no. What the president is doing is going with current precedent, which is declaring a national emergency when you want to, and also realizing that Congress isn't doing much to help you out. And Congress isn't doing much to address a national security problem on the southern border. Is the southern border an issue of national security? This is something that you've probably seen many times, written out by those in the media who say that the southern border is not an issue of national security. Depends on what you think an actual issue of national security is. If you think people who are crossing illegally into the United States is a national security issue, if you think people who are sex trafficked into the United States is a national security issue, if you think that drugs pouring across the border is a national security issue, you would say yes. If you think those things aren't that big of a deal, then you'd probably say no. Let's also remember that Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats voted in the past for border fencing, and now they are absolutely against it. So what does this mean for the future? Does this mean that a Democrat could come along and declare a national emergency on guns and try to confiscate guns? Sure. But that was already on the table, right? Democrat could do that anyway, but it just wasn't politically smart for a Democrat to do that or for anyone else to do that. Oh, also, you have the pesky issue of the U.S. Constitution getting in the way and the courts that would shut that down pretty quickly. What about the issue of climate change? Well, that's where it gets a little more muddled because we don't know how the courts would rule. We don't even know how the U.S. Supreme Court would rule on that, and it's not as cut and dry as the issue of the U.S.-Mexico border. Could a Democrat declare a national emergency on climate change and look around and say, hey, we really like the ideas behind the Green New Deal? Sure, they could, but it would be a huge increase in government takeover of just about every sector of the United States, and that largely would not pass constitutional muster, and it would not be very popular in the eyes of the voters. Could a president do it? They could try, and they would ultimately fail. So what's going to happen with this? Nobody really knows. If I had to take a wild guess, though, I think the Supreme Court would rule in favor of the president because of the border issue right now. I think that the Supreme Court would go along with the president and say that he is well within his rights as commander-in-chief to do this, but I think they would also say that the president should work with Congress and not use executive overreach in order to do it. Me personally, I'm in favor of the president doing this. I worry about the future and what message this sends, but I also live in the real world and understand that a Democrat president, whoever that may be, in 4, 8, 12 years, will probably also want to declare a national emergency on climate change and other issues. I'm a big fan, or I'm not a big fan, actually, of executive overreach, and I would love to see the size and scope of the Oval Office greatly reduced, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, and that means you have to live in the real world and play with the hand dealt to you. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.